Hello and welcome to week 3 of our centering practice based on the work of Howard Thurman. As we begin, a few reminders. This is a safe space. There is no right or wrong, just grace and the space and opportunity for growth. If you are new to the practice of silence and embodied prayer, please know that it can be challenging. It can be challenging to still the mind. It is perfectly natural to feel challenged by this, right? But I'd offer that you focus on your breathing and embrace the journey. Also, I understand the problems with centering practice in an online space and invite you to turn off your camera if that would be helpful for you. As with the previous practices, I'll share a brief reading from chapter 2 that highlights the theme of our practice. We'll spend a few minutes doing a breath and body check-in as we explore that theme, and finally seal our practice with 3 minutes of silence. So let's begin. Tonight's reflections are from several spots in the book, in that particular chapter, chapter 2, and so I'll read them sequentially. From page 26, Thurman writes, "Fear is nowhere particular and yet everywhere. It has its roots deep in the heart of the relations between the weak and the strong, between the controllers of environment and those who are controlled by it." He continues on page 30. "Fear then becomes the safety device with which the oppressed surround themselves in order to give some measure of protection from complete nervous collapse. How do they achieve this? In the first place, they make their bodies commit to memory ways of behaving that will tend to reduce their exposure to violence." On page 35, he writes, "Fear actually causes chemical changes in the body, affecting the bloodstream and muscular reactions, preparing the body either for fight or flight. Fear that served originally as a safety device, a kind of protective mechanism for the weak, finally becomes death for the self." And finally, on page 45, he offers the awareness that a man is a child of the God of religion, who is at one and the same time the God of life, creates a profound faith in life that nothing can destroy. Jesus speaks to fear, the danger of anxiety, and offers as an antidote the centering of our belovedness as children of God. For tonight's meditation, I'd like to explore with you this feeling of fear, the danger of it, and Thurman's antidote. Well, Jesus' antidote. Thurman says that fear is nowhere particular and yet everywhere. This kind of fear, he says, can kill. Tonight, I'd like to confront fear, face some of the hard questions, and respond to them with that antidote. Again, I invite you to personalize this process. If you are unable to connect with this kind of fear for any reason on a personal level, I'd invite you to consider how you might position yourself as an ally. How can you be a safe space for the vulnerable? As with last week's practice, take your place at the wall in solidarity with those who know intimately this death-dealing sense of fear. Embrace and then be willing to share this sense of universal belovedness. So let's begin. Find a comfortable seat. And as always, we begin with the breath. So just check in with how you're breathing. Check in with the rhythm and flow of your breath. Let's just take 30 seconds at the top of this session to prepare ourselves for the work ahead by beginning with the breath. Spread your feet hip width apart. Connect the soles of your feet with the ground beneath you. And breathe. If you haven't already, I'd invite you to find a comfortable position for your hands. Maybe place them on the tops of your thighs. Take a circle back with your shoulders to make sure they're down. Maybe find a soft gaze for your eyes, a centering focus. Or maybe you'll close your eyes. Or if you've decided to, maybe this would be a perfect place to turn off your camera. And just breathe. As able, find length, breadth, and space in your spine. Check in with your core. Is this a place of tension? For many people it is. So just check in there. Take a few deep belly breaths here. Inhaling and exhaling. A 3 full counts in, a 3 full counts out. On your own time, just 3 sets. If this is a space of tension for you, and as your arms are connected to your belly, your hands are pressed against your belly, maybe take a second to just hug yourself there, right? Just remind yourself that you are in a safe space. Just fill your core with oxygen. Make sure your inhale lands in your belly. And so when you take that inhale, you may kind of balloon the belly, right? And then exhale by deflating that balloon. Maybe try that right here. So you're breathing in anything that you might need, right? You take that in and you exhale or release what you don't need. And just breathe. Thurman shares how we teach our bodies, learn to behave and commit to memory ways of behaving that will protect and safeguard our lives. This fear, he says, is ever present, nowhere and everywhere. he connects it to this fear of a one-sided violence, he calls it. This and gives an example of an animal, right? Of a frightened animal, the quivering, pulsing fear birthed from the threat of violence. That fear, he says, can kill. So it's important that we name and confront it here, even if only for a few minutes. And so as we're seated here, I'd invite you to get comfortable. We'll spend a few minutes in reflection, and I'll offer a few questions that he poses in the text, or that I've drawn from the text. Just keep checking in with your breath. If you're experiencing that monkey mind, watch the thoughts arise and just let them go. And so as you're sitting here quietly, I offer these questions for your reflection. Have you taught your body the language of fear? Have you learned it? Can you locate fear in your body? What are you afraid of? We'll sit here for 30 seconds, just kind of digging into those questions. Can you locate fear in your body? Where is it? Have you taught yourself the language of fear? What are you afraid of? Just a few seconds here. As you've located, maybe even named that fear, I'd like you to consider what you might say to it. Find your tongue and speak to it. Have a little conversation with yourself. We'll sit in silence here and breathe for a few seconds. As you've named your fear, located it, what would you say to it? Embrace any discomfort as it might be leading you somewhere, offering cues for your personal journey. So if you're feeling tense or uncomfortable, then just be that. Be tense, be uncomfortable. We'll address those feelings later, but and how to even unlearn fear in the next phase of our practice. But for now, just be whatever you are and feel. Connect with what emerges and just keep coming back to the breath. Breathe. The next part of our practice involves some embodied movement, a series of movements designed to release or address bodily tension as we, with intention, reorient ourselves to our belovedness and value as children of God. We've named and confronted fear for the moment, and I don't want to leave you in that space. I think it's best that we come out of that together, mindful of the truth of our value and worthiness as children of God. You can follow me in these movements, or if not, sit in silence. I'd invite you to sit in silent reflection as we continue on. And so join me. Lift your hands off your thighs and bring your arms into that powerful angel wing kind of position. And this is what I call a shiny chest forward, brave heart, powerfully seated, right? Last week we talked about, the past 2 weeks we've talked about a powerfully seated stance. So this is a long spine, engaged core, shoulders down, long neck, powerfully seated, and bright shining chests forward. Bring your hands together and interlace your fingers. Press forward towards the camera. Bring your arms up so that's palms to the ceiling or sky. You can look up at your hands and release your fingers and just float down as you turn to the right. I'm on the right, but if you landed on your left, don't worry about it. Stay on the left. And just twist over whichever side you're on. Keep length in your neck, space between your earlobe and shoulder. Keep that shoulder down. And just twist. Twist out any negativity. Twist out fear. Make sure to breathe there. Make sure to breathe. Float the arms back up. Interlace the fingers and press them high. And release them and back to your angel wings. So your elbows are pressed back. Your chest is shining forward. And we are saying no today to the perpetual war of nerves. No to the perpetual war of nerves. Hands together. We'll go to the other side. Interlace the fingers. Press the palms forward towards your screen. You might curl your shoulders in a bit and curl your spine. And then sit up tall and reach your palms towards the sky. They're facing the sky. Look up. And then release them and twist on the opposite side. Length in the neck, space between the earlobe and shoulder. You might use that hand on your thigh to support you as you twist. Just twist over, wring it out. No to the perpetual war of nerves. Breathe here for a second. Arms back up, interlace the fingers and stretch up and float down. Powerfully seated, shiny chest forward, bright and shining. Let the movement help you absorb or disperse any negative feelings. And hands together. Interlace the fingers and press forward, palms forward. Reach to the ceiling. You might look up before twisting and just twist to the back. Notice how it might feel different this second time, right? You're twisting to the first side again. You're repeating that, and so you might know what it feels like, and you might explore that twist. You might dig a little deeper with it, still mindful of space, but twisting nonetheless a little bit more. And float those arms back up, interlace the fingers, press to the sky, and float back down. So we're reorienting ourselves to the stabilizing truth of our worth and value, our inner affirmation of self. Powerfully seated, right? So here's our last time. Hands together, interlace the fingers, press forward. Let's get a good stretch. You can curl that spine and then sit up tall. Palms to the ceiling, and release them and float down to the last side. You can use that hand on your front thigh. I'm on my left. If you're turning to the left, you'll have your right hand on your left thigh, and you'll use it to support yourself as you twist further. And that will be the opposite for you if you are on the other side. Either way, explore what it feels like this time. This is the second time, the second side, right? And so it might feel a little more familiar. Shoulder down. If you have to do like I do and just actually touch yourself to remind you, twist a little deeper, make sure you're breathing. One final breath here. Interlace the fingers, return to center. Palms to the sky. Look up at your hands. Release your fingers and float back down. Shiny chest, bright heart. Facing forward, powerfully seated in your belovedness. You are a child of God. The God of the universe calls you child. We are now, right now, choosing to, with creativity, survive. Allow this creative activity and practice to lead you on a path of survival, a way forward, a way ahead. Take a final breath here. And you can float your arms back down to a comfortable seated, maybe on the tops of your thighs again, or you can return them to your belly if that's comfortable. But just relax here for a second. Breathe. Thurman asks, is there any hope or help to be found for the disinherited in the religion of Jesus? Yes, absolutely yes. We'll begin our time of silence now, as I hope to offer a balm to any feelings that may have arisen. I'll offer that phrase again. The God of the universe calls you child. You can use that phrase in your time of quiet and stillness, or you can choose one of your own, or you can just keep returning to the breath. The next thing you hear will be the chime. It will announce our time of silence. We'll sit for 3 minutes together, and then you hear the chime again, signaling us to return. I invite you to open your eyes. Just slowly return. And just readjust yourself in your seat. Check in with how you're feeling. And you can just rest in quiet as I read this final offering from Thurman in a collection of writings called Meditations of the Heart. He shares this little piece. There is ever present in me a searching longing for some ultimate resting place for my spirit, some final haven of refuge from storms and upheavals of life. I seek ever the kind of peace that can pervade my total life, finding its quiet way into all the hidden crevices of my being and covering me completely with a vast tranquility. This I seek not because I am a coward, not because I am afraid of life or of living, but because the urge seems to steady me to the very core. With sustained excitement, I recall what, in my own urgency, I had forgotten. God is seeking me. Blessed remembrance, God is seeking me. Wonderful assurance, God is seeking me. I send you those words as my blessing to you tonight, or if you're watching this in the day, blessings to you, and thank you for joining us in this practice. Amen.